So it's starting to fallify here, as you guys can kind of see. There's ghosts behind me. I'm looking for something for this shelf. If anyone has any ideas, let me know. But let's talk about what we read in the last month of summer, because I consider August the last month of summer. I know technically fall doesn't start till September 22nd, but that's just my opinion. This is now fall. We're in September. So let's talk about what we read in August. So today, Stuart has come to join us to film. Stuart, do you have any opinions about books? What do you think? Yeah? You like books? Okay. Well, I'm gonna go talk about books. See you later. August, I actually got my whole hands on NetGalley for the first time and really started requesting books. And the first one I decided, or actually this is the second one I decided to read, was actually my first 5-star of the month, and that was Primetime Romance by Kate Robb. This actually just came out September 3rd with Random House, so thank you so much for the ARC. It's about Bryn, who's newly divorced and is currently living with a roommate named Josh, and they are both kind of feeling a little bit miserable from what she can tell, and currently she just keeps binging her favorite TV show, which is Carson's Cove, which basically resembles Dawson's Creek. And then one day she's watching it with her roommates, this cake appears, and suddenly they are transferred into the world of Carson's Cove, but it's like present day. So it's after the TV show's ended. She's all grown up, like the main character's all grown up, and all of the main characters are all grown up, and she's become the main character who she loves, Sloane, and Josh, who is her roommate, has become Fletch, who is essentially like Pacey in Dawson's Creek. And then there's Spencer, who she wants to fall in love with and who she thinks has been kind of wronged by the plot line. Like, she thinks Sloane and Spencer should have ended up together. So her goal while she's there, she's been sent by this guy that gave her this cake to do this goal, and it's essentially to make the happy ending that never happened in the TV show happen in present day. So that's her goal, is to really get the Dawson character, whose name is Spencer. And well, Fletch is there, who is Josh in real life, so her roommate, there to help his aunt and really help get this bar that they had rejuvenated. So it's basically the story of how they start to have feelings for each other, Josh and Bryn, while they are playing these characters, Sloane and Fletch, in this imaginary world. And it's such a sweet story. Some of my favorite parts of the story were actually how they incorporated like a special space that they have, because I remember having a special space with both my best friend and my husband. Those special spaces are so meaningful in relationships, and I thought that was so sweet that she incorporated that. I also loved all the 90s and 2000s references. So this was really a friends to lovers stories, and it had great commentary on how we grow up as well, like how we loved these shows, but really were the values in these shows what we value, maybe not so much. Yeah, I loved it. It was just so much fun, especially if you're like somebody who really likes teen shows. This is gonna be for you. I used to be a huge teen show person. My favorites are like the OC, but those are some of my favorite ones. What are your guys' favorites? Please let me know in the comments. I'd love to know what your favorite teen shows are. And that is Primetime Romance. I highly suggest you guys pick this one up. It's out now. So my second 5-star of the month was The Wedding People. And The Wedding People is by Alison Espach, I think is how you say her name. So trigger warning for this one. There's pregnancy loss involved. There's depression. You'll hear in a second what the premise is. And essentially the premise is about her trying to off herself. So be in the right headspace for this one, because it does have a lot of like really hard subjects like pregnancy loss and infertility, as well as depression inside. This is all about Phoebe, who finds this fancy hotel in Newport, Rhode Island, and when she finds this hotel, she knows that that's where she wants to go to off herself. And this is where she wants to spend her last night on Earth. She wants to have a nice, cozy night with room service and then just pass away. So when she gets to this hotel, though, there are all these wedding people there, including a bride and a groom about to be married. And she ends up talking to the bride in the elevator, and she begs her not to hurt herself. She says, please don't do this. Like, do not ruin my wedding this way. I will not recover from that, essentially. And Phoebe's like, no, I'm gonna do it anyway. But spoiler, she doesn't. And then she ends up being invited to be part of the wedding party, and from there she starts developing relationships with a bunch of people in the wedding party, including the groom-to-be and the bride's soon-to-be stepdaughter, whose name is Juice. And the relationships that develop in this are really, really strong. You see how, like, sometimes people are in your life for small periods of time, and how much those people can really affect you through this. And I think that is such a beautiful message, that like small things can really change someone's outcome. And we don't think about that a lot, but some of the smallest things that we do negatively and positively can really affect people's lives for the better or the worse. So I thought this was so life affirming. It was beautifully done. There was kind of a Sally Rooney vibe. So if you're a Sally Rooney fan, I highly suggest this book for Sally Rooney fans, because it really has very much a feeling of like how Sally Rooney kind of does the character studies. It had that kind of character study feel in this book. I liked it more than Sally Rooney because I don't know, there's something that doesn't quite connect with me with her, but it has like that same exploration of like depression and feelings as normal people does, essentially. Also felt so fortunate that we got to be at the beach while I read this book. And this book really had this ability to show you how unlikable characters can end up being likable if you just give them a chance. And while we were having fun in the beach, this was just like the greatest life-affirming read to be reading. And check out my husband playing golf, and look at these sunsets here. Oh my goodness, beautiful. So now that we've covered the 2 5 stars I had for the month, now we have a lot of 4 stars coming. So first off, we have Listen for the Lie, which is by Amy Tintera, and this is her adult debut. It's about a girl named Lucy who was best friends with this girl named Savannah, who everyone called Savvy. And one night, Savvy gets murdered, and everyone in that whole town, she lives in like a small town in Texas, everyone in this town says Lucy did it. Like, they believe Lucy murdered her. But here's the thing. Lucy's found later on that night wandering down a street in the middle of the rain, and all of the evidence is washed away because essentially Savvy was murdered in the rain, and the rain washed away all the evidence. And now it's years later, and this case has been put back into the spotlight because there's this podcaster named Ben who is talking about this case, and he's interviewing all these people, and they all really think that it's Lucy at the end of the day, or most of them think it's Lucy. So it's all these years later, right? And her grandmother asks her to come home for her birthday, but her grandmother has some ulterior motives here, and she really wants her to connect with this podcaster named Ben. And when Lucy gets back in town, she does end up connecting with this podcaster, and they kind of team up to figure out what is the lie here and what is real and what really happened to Savvy to help her solve her murder. And this is just a great thriller. Like, it really had me on the edge of my seat, partially because something that happened when Lucy was accused of murder was she was like, I have no idea if I did this or not. So she keeps having these thoughts like about murder, essentially, and you're kind of guessing, like, is this because she actually murdered her friend, or is this because she didn't murder her friend and she's trying to figure out what happened in her brain. Like, she's trying to process it. So that's why she's having these weird murderous thoughts. Yeah, it was very interesting. Like, you kind of go back and forth. Like, is Lucy the murderer? Is she not the murderer? You'll have to find out by reading it. But this was almost a 5-star for me. But you know what was missing for me? I think it was missing Ben's perspective, like the podcasters. I really wanted his perspective, as well as Lucy had an ex-husband in this book, and I really wanted his perspective as well to just kind of get what he was feeling in it. But you know, something I really loved about this, it went back and forth between Lucy's perspective and the podcast interviews, and I love it when there's a good like interview in a book. I love when it's multimedia kind of, and you get like different looks at things, because I think that's such an interesting way to make a story more involved and really to capture people into that story. Up next, I read Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. This was actually an audiobook I got from the library. This was a 4 for me as well. Basically, the story is that Lena's mother has recently passed from cancer, and when she passes away, she sends Lena to go live with her dad in Italy. And once she gets to Italy, she sends her this journal, and this journal is from her time in Italy, and Lena kind of follows in her mom's footsteps, learns a bunch of secrets that kind of happened in Italy to her, learns about her time being young and coming of age story in Italy. And then she also meets this boy named Ren who becomes her friend. And from there, like, a love kind of ensues. I'm not gonna ruin it for you, but a lot of this is like her self-discovery story. It's a great like coming of age story. I kind of feel like at this point in my reading journey, like, most YA books are 4-star for me because I've read so much YA that I'm just used to it. But this one had such a magical presence of Italy that I just loved that about it. I highly suggest this though if you want something that's set in Italy, because it really does have that Italian vibe, and I loved that about it. So next we have The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a 4.5 star for me. It's a little higher just because I loved the relationships in it. So essentially Avery is mysteriously given all this money by this rich guy named Tobias Hawthorne when he passes away, and the gist is essentially she's never met him. But there's also a catch. She has to stay in his mansion in Texas for at least a year to inherit all this money officially. And she also has to live with his grandchildren and his children in the meantime, who all want this money. And this house involves all these secrets and puzzles and riddles that Tobias Hawthorne has put throughout the house, and his grandchildren are used to solving these puzzles, and they think she's essentially a puzzle. So it's kind of the story of her learning what the puzzles are, but also she's trying to like figure out this family. Like, who are these people? Why do they have all these like weird interests? Like, why do they seem to have all these secrets? She's trying to figure out all of that. So that's basically the story of the first book. I will be honest, I did not like this nearly as much as I've liked The Naturals. I sort of feel like all the boys seemed the same right now, and I'm waiting for them to get a little bit more fleshed out. I think that they will get more fleshed out as the series goes on. I just need more. And I do feel like this about a lot of series, especially YA series, where like the first book of that series kind of feels forced, and it kind of feels like a setup for everything else. And at this point, I can kind of feel that in first books, and I think that makes me not connect as much as I could possibly connect with it. This is a 4.25 star, and it was an ARC given to me by, I think, Random House. This one actually doesn't even come out till November. I'm gonna put the date here. But it is called Like Cats and Dogs by Lizzie Shane, and it was such a sweet small town feeling romance. Essentially, this girl named Magda, she's a baker in the town, and there's this guy named Mac who is an owner of a local coffee shop, and these people have become rivals. They long ago had a kind of friendship that was a little bit of a flirtationship that never really evolved into a relationship, and then afterwards something happened and they became rivals in this small town. Magda is about to go and compete in this show that is like a reality show, kind of like the Great British Bake Off, and kind of like the Great British Bake Off, but it's in the US and it's set in Vermont essentially. And when she gets there though, she finds out that, oh my goodness, Mac is competing too, because this is actually the rivals version of this baking show. And from there, like, we see the competition happen and what happens with all these different competitors and who all the different competitors are. We also get to see their relationship evolve and how they're having a second chance at this relationship that never really took off in the first place. So I'm gonna be honest, I really loved a lot about this book. I think the relationship was kind of on the back burner. It wasn't really the main focus. So if you're not like into like cooking shows, this might not be for you because it wasn't the main focus in my opinion. It also had a little ick for me, which was the age gap in this. I didn't really like the age gap that was happening with Magda and Mac. So I'm just not sure I like age gap romances. I always feel like, ooh, that person's really young. Are you sure you want them? And that might be a personal problem of mine. So just keep that in mind with me saying that. I also was really like, where are all the cats and dogs? As a dog and cat person, I wanted more cats and dogs in this. But I will say this was super cute, adorable, closed door romance with a lot of really fun reality TV talk in it. So I loved that about it. Next off, I kind of went on a play binge because we're doing season selection at the theater company I work for, and I'm not going to talk about all of them. I read 6 different plays. I don't even really track plays as part of my what I've read unless I've read like more than 4 plays that month, and I did read 6, so I tracked it as one book essentially. And this one that I really want to talk about is The Revolutionists by Gunderson. This was really fun. It involved like historical figures and kind of had a feminist spin on women in history. And I loved that about this. I think it's gonna be really fun to do at the theater company I work for. So I will maybe update you guys on some of that as well. There was also a fun play by a playwright in the Pacific Northwest named Nora Douglas called Martine Out of Time, and I'm really excited for that one as well. I also got 2 plays chosen for that season, so maybe I'll update you guys a little bit in a vlog sometime about my theater life as well. Let me know in the comments if you'd like something like that. Okay, so that was just like the play I read. I would say that's a 4-star. And then finally, my 3.5 star, which is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I'm gonna be honest, I liked a lot about this, and I listened to it on audiobook, but I found that I wanted an extra narrator in there that didn't come till the very end, so we'll talk about that in a second. But this is the story of Julia and Will's wedding on this Irish island, and like it tells the backstory of like a few of the different people at the wedding. It also talks about the school that they went to. I'm not gonna give you guys too much info because I think that thrillers are best when you don't know too much about them, but essentially it's a wedding on an island and what happens on that wedding weekend and the secrets that all of these characters have that are going to kind of catch up with one of them at the end because it ends with murder. So my pros for this one is I really loved the character of Hannah. I just thought she was one of the best characters in this and the most likable, because honestly, I would not be friends with the majority of these people in this one. The only one I really liked was Hannah. She was the only one that seemed likable in this. I also liked like the Agatha Christie vibes. It really did have like kind of an Agatha Christie feeling to it. Then I also liked the darkness of it because I secretly like really love dark books, and sometimes I steer away from that because I don't want to feel sad. But I really leaned into the dark books this month, and I thought The Darkness was really fun, but I needed Will's perspective earlier, which was the groom, and they never gave it to us until like the very end of this book. And I think this book would have been so much stronger if Will had been a narrator throughout. So that's my bone to pick with this book, and that's why it's a 3.5 instead of like a 4 or 5 for me. 3.5 basically means that like it was missing something for me. When I put a 3 as a rating, it means like I'm not sure I liked this, and then below 3 I just don't rate it. So just know that about me. So the guest list, I would suggest this if you are someone who loves like an island setting for a thriller, because that is a really fun part of this. I just think that it could have been stronger. So next off, I read another arc, and this one's already out. This is the Tuscan Sisters by Daniela Sacerdoti. And I'm gonna be quite honest, I'm not gonna review this one today because I'm gonna do a little bit of a reread of this, because I read this on my red-eye flight to the trip I went to this month, and I remember very little about the ending, so I can't really give an accurate review on this, but I really loved the setting. It's set in Italy, and I loved that about it. But I will give a more in-depth review in my September wrap-up once I've had a little time to review it again. So that is what I read in August. I want to know, what did you guys read in August? What was your favorite book you read in August? Let me know in the comments what your favorite book in August was and what you're looking forward to in September, because I'd love to talk to you all more about books. Okay, that's all I have for you all today. And to salute you all off, look at my fantastic mug. This says, I won't be doing any of that, but thank you. Do you all know who this is? So I'll see you all later. Bye!